You're live.
Good morning, all. Good morning, all. Today, the 22nd of May, a day proclaimed by the United Nations as the International Day for Biological Diversity for the promotion of understanding and awareness of biodiversity issues. This year, our theme is Our Solutions Are in Nature. The current year, 2020, as we are facing the COVID-19 pandemic, as the United Nations correctly puts it, it is a year of reflection, a time to re-examine our relationship with nature. With whatever advancements we have made, still a thought on how much we are completely dependent on Mother Nature for all our needs. We, the Department of Zoology, St.Xavier's College for Women, we are glad to associate with the Department of Zoology, the St.Xavier's College for Women, we are glad to associate with India Biodiversity Portal for organizing this webinar on biodiversity informatics and documentation through citizen science on India Biodiversity Portal. The resource person for today is Dr. Thomas Vattakaven.
Yeah, I think Divya, you're back. Hello. Hello. Good morning to all. I hope you are able to see the screen. I think we have some network issues, so hopefully please bear with us. So first of all, I would like to thank Divya and Anu from St.Xavier's College for Women, Aluva, for inviting me to give this webinar. So, and also happy International Day for Biodiversity to all. So today I'm going to be talking about biodiversity informatics and documentation through citizen science on the India Biodiversity Portal. I am Dr. Thomas Vattakaven. I work with Strand Life Sciences, which is the developer for the India Biodiversity Portal, and we manage the programs of the India Biodiversity Portal. So today, briefly, an overview of what I'm going to be talking about. I will go through what is biodiversity and what is biodiversity data. And I will briefly cover what is biodiversity informatics and how the India Biodiversity Portal is using biodiversity informatics to aggregate biodiversity data. And then I will move on to citizen science and just give you a brief overview of citizen science and how citizen science can be used how you can contribute to citizen science through the India Biodiversity Portal. And then finally, we will have a hands-on demo of the India Biodiversity Portal. And I hope all of you, or at least most of you, have some images with you so that you can participate in the hands-on demo and uploading of observations on the India Biodiversity Portal. If there is any comments, or if the stream breaks and there is a network issue, please post in comments in the comment section. One of us will be curating the comment section, and you can get the feedback and hopefully answer some of your questions at the end of the presentation. So to start off with, what is biodiversity? I'm sure a lot of you are involved in studies on biodiversity. A lot of you belong to zoology and botany departments across India. So all of you are familiar with biodiversity. But how many of you have actually spent some time thinking what actually is biodiversity, examining what is the definition of biodiversity? So generally, the word biodiversity derives from biological diversity and refers to all the variety of life that can be found on Earth. This includes plants, animals, fungi, even microorganisms. But also it refers to the communities that they form and the habitats in which they live. Even if you look at the definition put out by the Convention on Biological Diversity means the variability among organisms. That is quite evident. We're talking about species. But also it refers to the ecological complexes in which they are part of. And this includes the diversity within species, between species and ecosystems. So essentially, we're not only talking about species, we're talking about the ecosystem in general. We're talking about what is called the web of life. So what is the web of life? I'm sure, again, a lot of you are familiar with the web of life. You might have studied it in your zoology or botany lessons about what a food web is. And so essentially a food web is a smaller web of life. A web of life is essentially the interconnections between all the species present around you. So this is an example I've got from Snapshot Serengeti, which shows you the web of life in a particular ecosystem in Africa. And you can see they've listed out all the species found in that ecosystem. But not just the species, they've listed out fire, they've listed out termite mounds, they've listed grasses, they've listed out browsers and grazers, also the carnivores. And it's not just about the species, but also the interactions between them. You can see here they listed out negative and positive interactions as well as unknown interactions. So these kind of webs of life are present everywhere, all around us. And to understand biodiversity, we really need to understand not just what the species are, but also how they are interconnected. And so if I ask you, what is the web of life present in your locality? Where do you go and how do you get the information to answer that question, to understand what is the life going on around you? And in order to understand the web of life, we need to determine, first of all, what are the species? The most basic understanding of the web of life is to understand what are the species around me. Once you understand what the species are around you, you also need information on what are the roles that these species play. And how does each species interact with each other? Some of them may be parasites, some of them may be producers, some are consumers, some may be hosts to other species, etc. And also, what do they eat? Which species are being eaten by another species? What is required as food for a particular species to exist? And so on. Importantly, we also need to understand where do they occur. Some species may occur in certain niche areas. They may have limitations. They may be endemic. Some species may be widespread. Some species may be invasive. They may occur everywhere. Also importantly, we need to understand when do these species occur. Some are seasonal, some are migratory. So the temporal distribution is important to understand. Additionally, what factors affect the lives of each species? So it's not just biological parameters that affect the life of species. There are abiotic factors such as weather, nutrients, diseases, threats, and so on. And there's a whole lot of other factors that goes into creating life and maintaining it. And essentially, if you want to understand the biodiversity around you, if you want to understand the web of life around you, you need to put all these together and look at it in its entirety to get a picture of the web of life. And if you break it down, essentially what we need to construct this web of life, to understand the web of life, is data. And we're talking here about biodiversity data. So if you go in and try to look at what is biodiversity data, try to understand it, essentially it comes down to what, where, and when. It is talking about a taxon or a species and space and time. Where is a species present and at what time? This is the most basic unit of understanding biodiversity data. And this we call as primary biodiversity data. It places an individual of a particular taxon at a particular place and a particular time with some appropriate documentation. For example, an image or a video, etc. This is also what we call as observation data, and this constitutes the fundamental unit of primary biodiversity data. Now, there is also secondary biodiversity data, and secondary biodiversity data is synthesized or processed or interpreted data, most often from the primary biodiversity data. This is data that is summarized using primary biodiversity data. And examples are maps, publications, reports, etc. Very often, secondary biodiversity data products don't contain primary biodiversity data, but they're derived from the primary biodiversity data. So, for example, if you're talking about that neem tree that is present, behind your house or on the college campus or on the roadside, you are recording it as primary biodiversity data. It is the occurrence of a single individual of that neem tree. And you can also record what time it is present. It is present today at the corner of the road, and where it is present, of course, at a spatial location. This is primary biodiversity data. But then when you process that and you aggregate that information and you begin to record all neem species present around the area, and then you put that together, then essentially what you have is a map of the occurrence of the neem tree around your locality. And this is processed information. This is secondary biodiversity data or information. Now this, for example, is a map of the distribution of the elephant from IUCN. And you can see here there is a map showing you the distribution of the elephant across India and Asia, Southeast Asia. And this essentially is a secondary biodiversity data product. We don't know what has gone into making this map. It does not give you each individual record that has gone into generating this map. This essentially is interpreted data. So in order to understand this better, you might need to look into what has gone into making this map or this secondary biodiversity product. If you look at the same distribution map for elephant in GBIF, you'll see that the map is quite different here. There are records from not only India and Southeast Asia, but also from Africa, from Europe and America. Now, how do you understand? I mean, so is this telling me that the distribution of elephants are found in America and Europe and Africa? Of course, Africa there is, but this is the Indian elephant. So what has gone into generating this map? And in order to understanding the distribution, we need to look into what has gone into generating this map. And luckily for us, GBIF, or the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, allows you to download the primary biodiversity data. And once you begin to examine this data, you can see that there's further metadata that substantiates each data point. And you can see that it's composed of not just human observation of an elephant, but also there are records of fossil specimens across the world. There are records of preserved specimens from museums. And so now you get a better picture of how of or why this map is showing you distribution records from Europe and America. So primary biodiversity data is extremely important, not just to generate these maps and reports and other products, but also to understand the details behind the process. So data in itself, a single record of a single tree or a single organism at any one particular point in time at a place is a low value product. By itself, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It doesn't make have a whole lot of meaning. But when you begin to aggregate this data, then its value starts to grow. And once you interpret that data together, and you assemble all of it together and you begin to interpret it, then you begin to generate information. And once you have information, you can interpret that and make and have knowledge. And it is knowledge essentially what we need to be able to make decisions. How do we conserve a particular species? How do we conserve priority areas for a species? How do we stop a species from being under threat? What are the factors that affect the conservation of a species? Or how do we improve the yield of a particular variety of species, and so on? So data in itself, while it may be low value product, as you begin to assemble it and interpret it, it becomes a high value product. And this is essentially what we need to understand biodiversity. Now, let me stop here with biodiversity and go into a little bit into informatics. So what is informatics? I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with informatics. You must have heard the term bioinformatics multiple times. Some of you may actually be working with it. But for those of you who are not familiar, essentially informatics is information processing, or it is the engineering of information systems. Put in another way, it is the interface between data which resides on machines and humans. So to be able to access this data, process it, analyze it, etc., that is informatics. To be able to organize the data in a way that you can access it easily and interpret easily, that is informatics. Essentially, it is happening through machines and through the internet. So biodiversity informatics is no less different. In this case, we are talking about biodiversity data. Or most often, it is primary biodiversity data that is being used in biodiversity informatics. And using this primary biodiversity data, we store it on a machine somewhere, a server, and then we build information technology methods to solve the problems of how do we capture more data? How do we organize the data once we have it? And once you have stored the data, how do you access it? And also, how do you derive from it? How do you visualize this data in a way that makes sense to everybody? How do you allow people to analyze this data for whatever purposes that they want? So all this happens through the process, through the branch of biodiversity informatics. And when you begin to look at the problem of biodiversity data, or how do we organize data, it is not just about primary biodiversity data. It's about both primary as well as secondary biodiversity data. And when you look at what is there out there in the world as biodiversity data, you can see that there's a whole variety of products or a whole variety of types of data that define biodiversity. So, for example, there are taxonomic classifications for each species. There are type specimens, morphological descriptions of species. There are notes on its habit, on its habitat. There are a whole lot of images, life cycle information, seasonality, distribution data. Then people talk about how it's being used. There are stories about species. Once researchers start generating data, there's tabular data. A whole lot of labs are generating genetic information. And there are a whole lot of links and resources and documents and references and other things. So the question for biodiversity informatics becomes this: how do we put all this data together and organize it in a way that can be easily accessed? So fundamentally, it comes down to this. If you look at all this data, it has a common axis, and this is the species axis. All these types of information talk about the species. It refers to a single species or multiple species. And then some of this also talks about a time. This species occurred at this time, or this species was recorded at this time, etc. And finally, it also has a spatial axis or the location axis. So using these three axes, we can build a system that can organize all of the data on either one of these axes or multiple axes at the same time. Now, it's not just information directly relevant to species, but we also have a whole lot of other informations: climates, soils, vegetation, rainfall, forest types, elevation, land use. All these are directly relevant to when and where a species occurs. And so we also need to be able to process such information and integrate it with the biological information that we have on a species. And again, if you look at these data types, most of them almost always has a spatial axis. Some of them have a time axis and a species axis. So it boils down to these three axes. To organize biodiversity information, we need these three, or at least one of these three axes on which we can peg all of this information and then to be able to process it. So that's essentially what a biodiversity informatics system does. It is able to take in data and process it along these three axes: a spatial, a temporal, or a taxonomic axis. But not just take in data. When somebody wants to contribute data of different types, it should be able to handle that. It should be able to take in both primary as well as secondary data in whatever way it is present out there, because you cannot depend exclusively on primary data. Most of the information which is already present out there is secondary biodiversity data. A lot of the historical information is present as secondary biodiversity data. So we need to be able to take this in, and once the system takes in these data, it needs to be able to break it down along these three different axes and then process it in some way. So once it stores this data, there's also a very important step of validation by experts. So some of these can be greatly improved by the involvement of experts. Some of these need to be validated by experts. And so the system needs to be able to allow this validation and interaction on the data by a set of experts to happen. And then when the end user or the consumer wants to use this in whatever way or format he wants, he should be able to access the broken down data. That is essentially, ideally, he should be able to access the primary data in a raw format so that he can use it for whatever purpose he wants, to generate a report, to do an assessment study, to do an impact assessment, etc. And so he needs to be able to access this data in some manner. But also, it's very important that the people involved, the contributor, the experts, and the consumer are able to interact on some front and exchange information and verify the data. So if the expert wants further verification, he should be able to contribute he should be able to contact the contributor and get more information on this. And similarly, the consumer should be able to talk to experts and get clarity on certain things and so on. So this is essentially what a biodiversity informatics system needs to do. And this is what we've been trying to build on the India Biodiversity Portal over the years. So quickly now to go into what is India Biodiversity Portal. It is accessed at indiabiodiversity.org. And what we are attempting to do on the India Biodiversity Portal is to aggregate information on India's biodiversity from both primary as well as secondary data. It is collaborative. The public can participate on the portal and contribute this information. It is not just one organization or one individual putting on this information. The information present on the India Biodiversity portal is aggregated from multiple users and multiple contributors from the public. All the information, once it's on the portal, is under open access, is freely accessible, and everything is kept under Creative Commons licenses. For those of you who are not familiar with Creative Commons licenses, it is an alternative to copyright. So while copyright says you cannot use my information by default, Creative Commons says you can use my information by default, provided that you give attribution or you give credit to the contributor of the information, to the original contributor. So this facilitates easy sharing of information. Another thing is that all the information on the portal is structured. There are different modules that take care of different structures. For example, there is a species module, an observation module, a maps module, a documents module. And these different modules cater to different types of information, but yet they are interconnected. I'll go into further detail on this. And also all the code development that we do to generate this portal for processing information and organizing biodiversity information is under open source. So it can be reused for other platforms, for people who want to generate apps around this and so on. And it's under constant development. We have been active since 2008, and we're still under constant development, and things are changing and adapting as time goes on. And finally, the portal is run by a consortium of 19 institutions who have all agreed in principle to support open data on biodiversity. And these partners can be seen at the bottom of the homepage of the India Biodiversity Portal if you're interested. Now, just to go quickly across the timeline of the India Biodiversity Portal, we started in 2008 with funding from the JRS Biodiversity Foundation, ATRI, and FES. And at this time, we started just as a map module. But over the years, especially in 2011, we got funding from the Critical Ecosystem Partnership Fund to start the Western Ghats portal, which is basically a site within the India Biodiversity Portal pertaining to the Western Ghats. And under this project, we were able to develop a species module that talks about species descriptions, an observation module that deals with citizen science, a document module which allows the aggregation of document information or PDF files on biodiversity. And in 2013, we were approached by Bhutan to develop the Bhutan Biodiversity Portal. And the Bhutan Biodiversity Portal runs on the same platform as the same code base as the India Biodiversity Portal. Similarly, in 2014, we also were approached to start the weed identification portal, which is a portal run by CIRAD, an organization which based in France, which deals with agronomy information. And this portal is about weeds, agricultural weeds in the Western Indian Ocean context. And again, this platform is using the same code base and running the same code base as IBP. And we, under these projects, we added a mobile app, we added a name list infrastructure, which holds the taxonomy information, and a trait infrastructure, which I will talk about in a little bit. And in 2017, we were approached by the Assam State Biodiversity Board to start the Assam Biodiversity Portal, and which is now a part of India Biodiversity Portal. And this essentially gathers information on the biodiversity of Assam. And under this and a World Bank funded project for enhancing the Bhutan Biodiversity Portal, we added a datasets infrastructure and improved the maps interface. Last year, we got a project from the National Geographic to improve the citizen science component, the observation module on the India Biodiversity Portal. And we've started revamping the entire India Biodiversity Portal, starting with the observation module, because it's been over 10 years of development now, and we are improving the technology and the interfaces for the portal right now. And finally, we currently have a project in Madagascar to document all the protected areas of Madagascar. And under this, we are adding a landscape module, which defines each landscape, each protected area, and this will also add a new module to the India Biodiversity Portal, which is the landscape module. So, to briefly tell you about the modules, at the core of the India Biodiversity Portal, as I said, we have a taxonomic axis and a spatial axis. The temporal axis by default comes in, but it doesn't need a separate entity or separate module to capture the temporal axis. So at the core, we have the taxonomic axis, which is handled by a taxonomy or a name list module, which captures a list of all species found in India. And then we have the spatial axis, which is the maps module. The maps module, we have over 200 layers, which captures the information on all the different regions of India. For example, the soils, the rainfall, the forest types, the districts, the taluks, the states, etc. And this essentially forms a spatial axis. And then we have the species pages, which captures descriptive information on the species. And we have an observation module, which is a citizen science module, which I will show you in a bit. A documents module, which indexes PDF files and reports on species. And finally, now we are adding the landscape module for defining or describing landscapes in the biodiversity context. But these modules are not isolated. They talk to each other. The taxonomy module serves the species pages, the observations, and the documents. The maps module serves the species pages, documents, and landscapes. The observations are pulled into species pages, so people can see the observations within species pages for that species. The document module lists out all the relevant documents of each species, and so it interconnects with the species pages. And observations feeding into landscapes, so listing out all the species found in a landscape. And documents are listed within the species pages as well as landscape. So what is happening essentially is that although information is segregated and handled differently, they all interconnected back and put back together so that the larger picture is there and makes a lot more sense when you go in from a particular context and you want to understand information that is present in different modules on the portal. Now, quickly, I will jump to what is citizen science. I'm sure all of you know citizen science. A lot of you must be participating in different citizen science activities across India. There are multiple instances of citizen science happening across India. And I'm sure all of you must be familiar with it. But just to put it in context, what is citizen science? Essentially, I'm not going to go into the definition of citizen science because there's a lot of debate on what actually should be citizen science. But essentially, it comes down to public participation in science. And additionally, it requires some thoughtful action on the part of the participant. So essentially, it is non-professionals taking part in crowdsourcing, data analysis, and data collection. And the data is somehow feeding in to science. That is essentially what citizen science is. So although you may not be directly doing science, you may not be knowing what the end product is, it is in some way contributing to science. That essentially is what it comes down to in today's context, what citizen science is all about. On IBP, you can participate by uploading observations, and that is essentially the most public-facing part of citizen science on the India Biodiversity Portal. That is, you can upload an observation which is comprised of a media, that is either image, audio, or video. You may or may not identify the species, but you always need to put in the date of observation and the location. This is essentially how you participate. I'll go into detail when I go into the hands-on session and the portal. This is essentially what citizen science is on the India Biodiversity Portal. And now to show you an example of an observation, this is an observation uploaded by a participant on the India Biodiversity Portal. He has uploaded a photo of a snake. It has been identified as the common rat snake with the scientific name and the common name. And it comes from Singampatti in Tamil Nadu in India. So the location has been recorded and the date of observation has been recorded. Now, this is not just a picture that somebody has uploaded onto the portal. It is much more than just a picture of a snake. Once you put an identification to the snake, once you define a scientific name to this observation, it becomes information. For example, the species picture, the image that has been uploaded, can be pulled into the species pages, and it will show examples of what the species looks like. So this is extremely useful information, considering that we have lakhs of species in India, and the public has little access to what each species looks like. Then when you record where that species was observed, it essentially becomes a data point for that species description. So we are able to aggregate different observations of that species and generate these distribution maps for that species. Finally, the date, because we are able to record, you have submitted a date of observation of that species. This information can be used to build temporal distribution information for the species. What is the seasonality? When is it most commonly seen, and so on. Of course, this will need more interpretation to find out things like migrations and life cycles. But this is the baseline data for creating temporal distributions for species. So when you upload an observation, you are participating in science. You are contributing that information that can contribute to distribution information, to images of species, to understanding a species better through different means. So this is basically how we participate in citizen science on the India Biodiversity Portal. Now I will go into a hands-on demo of the portal. I will switch. I will first demonstrate the portal. I will go through a few pages, and then I will go on to how you register the portal. And once I've shown you a brief overview of the portal, we can go into registering on the portal and a few other things. So let me just switch my screen to the browser. I hope all of you are able to see properly, and if not, please put comments so that we can understand if you are facing any issues. So let me just quickly switch from my presentation to the browser. And share my browser. So this, I hope all of you are able to see the browser now. Okay, thanks. So this essentially is the India Biodiversity Portal. You can access the portal by typing in indiabiodiversity.org into your browser. And this is the home page or the landing page of the browser. You can see some pretty pictures that have been contributed by different people. The observer is put over here. And just below are the different modules on the portal. So the species module, the observation module, the maps module, documents, users, and discussions. A few of the recent observations that people have submitted through citizen science are shown here. And this map essentially depicts the spread of observations that we have on the portal. We have over 1.39 million records, and these are plotted to show the density and distribution of these records across India. You can see most of the distribution happens in the Western Ghats and the Western coast. There's also good distribution across the Himalayas and Northeast India, which are coincidentally are also biodiversity hotspots. There's also good participation from Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, so at least south regions. Also here, the different modules are listed and a brief explanation is given. And finally, there's a partners section which presents all the partners of the India Biodiversity Portal. You can click any of the partners and go to their homepage. Now, let me quickly just show you the species module. As I said, the main aim of India Biodiversity Portal is to aggregate information on species. And for this, we need to understand what are the species present in India. And once you have a list of species present in India, we need to create information pages for the species in India. Now you can filter by category to get a filtered view of the species groups that you are interested in. You can also go to the taxon browser and either expand the browser and click on the species that you are interested in, or you can search for a taxon and directly find that species and click that to bring up the category or the particular species page that you are interested in. Here also there's a brief listing of the taxonomic summary of the species pages, which are how many accepted names and how many synonyms we have within the species pages. If I just go into one of the species pages to show you an example of what we capture in as information within the species pages. So this is Melanoculus trijuga, which is the black pond turtle. You can see this is a detailed information page on the species. On top, you have the scientific name and the most commonly used common name. We have the hierarchy, taxonomic hierarchy in two places. There is a species gallery which lists out all the images of that species so that you're able to see and understand what it looks like. There is the traits infrastructure, which sort of is structured information on traits of the species. So, for example, what is its IUCN classification? In this case, it comes under lower risk or near threatened category. What is the habitat that it belongs to? It is a terrestrial freshwater species. What are the groupings available for it? What is the reproductive mode? And what is its status on the CITES list? We also capture taxonomic information such as synonyms. What are the different synonyms that it is known under? This is important information when it comes to processing information available for the species. There is also a listing of common names in different languages. Now, this is not a completed exercise, and we are aggregating these bits of information as we go along. And so it is a continually expanding exercise. And you can see there's names in different languages. And then we have sections on overview, a brief of the species, what are the subspecies, varieties, and races that are found for it. You have information on the type, nomenclatural and classification information. The natural history lists out things like reproduction, life expectancy, the size, growth, morphology, lookalikes, ecology, and so on. Now you'll notice that this information is coming in from different contributors. So this is from Jayaditya, this is from Anuja, and so on. If you click on the I icon here, you can get further details on the contributor and what are the licenses that is being put out under. So this species information is contributed from experts on the species, and only experts can edit or contribute information on the species. And if you are an expert, you can go to contribute to species pages, and here you will be able to request permission to contribute species-based information. So once you send that permission, there will be a verification process to understand who you are, and if you are approved, you will be able to contribute information within the species pages. Then there is also this occurrence map, which shows you the distribution of that species across India. You can see the yellow points are between 0 to 1 record, and then 1 to 2 records are the orange, and the slightly darker red shows you a greater density of distribution. And this is essentially feeding in from the observations. We have 82 observations of this species that have been submitted, and this is what is generating the distribution map for the species. We also have information on the demography and conservation, uses and management, and then we have a section on information listing, which lists out the references available, as well as the documents that are available on the portal. So this bit of information is coming in from the document module. Now, if I go back to the home page, I can access the document module from here or from the menu here. The document module, as I said, allows you to upload documents into the species pages. So the documents are essentially PDF files. So this is contributed by Abhijit Das, and this is a publication on Indian hotspots that has been recently uploaded. It's a PDF file. And there's also metadata captured on each document. So again, if you want to contribute to documents, you can click contribute and add a document and upload a PDF file of the document. There's also a map section. As I said, this forms the spatial access for the portal. If you click the maps, you go to the map module. By default, all the observations are shown. But if you click this icon, it shows you the 200 layers that we have aggregated containing map-based information for different aspects of India. For example, this is the India districts. You can select anything and add it to the map platform. So this is the forest types, and if you click on the map, it should show you more information for that particular area. So this is still under development. So there might be some issues. I won't go into too much detail about this. Now, coming to observations. So the observations are the citizen science aspect of the citizen science module of the portal. So if you click through, you come to the list page where the recently uploaded observations are shown. You can scroll down and view all observations of the that have been submitted to the portal. We have around 1.39 million records. So it will not be possible to just scroll and access these. So if we look on the left side, there is a filter panel. If you are interested in, say, birds, you can click on birds and it will filter that information and show you the records for birds. And similarly, you can filter by arthropods, mammals, reptiles, fishes, plants, fungi, and so on. And once you're done, you can clear the filter from here. There is also a taxon browser. If you know exactly what you're looking for, and if that name is present within the system, you can either expand the taxon browser and then go to that specific species and pick that entry and fetch all observations for that particular species. If you just want to do a name search, you can do that name search by typing in the name. Or if you want to break that down further by accepted name and synonym, that is also possible. We have some parameters for data quality. You can filter out identified and unidentified observation. So if you are a species expert and you want to see all the observations that are unidentified, you can just select this and see all the as yet unidentified species and help identify them. I'll show you how to do that in a minute, and so on. There are a whole lot of filters, and we are constantly adding more filters. This is still under development, so we will be adding to these filters. There are some filters present now. Now, on the right-hand side, you have the entry itself. And if you want to know further details about that observation, there are some details shown out here. What is the scientific name, where it was observed, when it was observed, what category it belongs to, and so on, and who is the contributor. If you click on the image, you will go to the detailed page for that observation. Here you have the scientific name, you have the classification, which is navigable, you have the observer details here, and you have the image that was submitted. Now in this case, he has also identified it. So you can see down here that his identification is here. If you agree with this, if you know that this is this particular species, you can click on the agree button and it will add a vote for you to agree. If you're not logged in, it will ask you to sign in. And once you sign in, it will add your vote to the species identification. If you disagree or if you want to change your word, you can remove what is there. And you can suggest another name. Suppose I think it is an agaricus species. You can type in. So you can type in the common name. If it has the common name, it will show you what the appropriate common name and the scientific name is. And it will automatically feed that for you, and you can suggest a name. In this case, I think he's got it right, so I will agree with the species. Now you can see that there's also a validate button, and this validate button is not accessible to all. It is only available for species curators. And so once the species curator thinks that the identification is correct, once the expert approves that this identification is correct, he can click on this validate button and it will get locked. So essentially, he is verifying the identity of this observation. Now, on this side, we also present to you the distribution, the known distribution on the portal for this species. In this case, there are a few records in the Northeast and some in the Western Ghats. And because we have the location information, we are also able to present to you other details of the location, such as where is this tahsil, what is the soil type, what is the temperature of this region, what is the rainfall type for this region, and so on. And using the date provided, we also aggregate and show you the temporal distribution for the species. And so, as you can see here, there are no records for the species from January till March, whereas closer to the monsoon period, you have much more records. So I don't know if there's a correlation with the monsoon. Is there a seasonality that starts from April and so on? So this is something interesting that people can look into. Here we show you all the other related observation records for that species, and also what other species were found in the nearby locality. If you don't want to click through and go into the detailed observation page, you can also participate from the list page. Here on the list page, we have these different tabs. So if you want to identify, you can do exactly the same things that you have done on the show page by clicking these groups for identification, for posting it to different groups, for annotating things like traits, which I will go through again, and for putting comments and so on. So you can try all this from the list page. So that's essentially a brief overview of the content on the portal. Now, what I would like all of you to do, we have requested that all of you bring images, and if you have brought it, we can participate while I'm explaining this to you. So essentially, what I would like all of you to do right now is to go to the homepage of the portal and create an account on the portal if you haven't already done. So how you do it is you click on the login button. And if you already have an account, you should be able to log in. But if you don't have an account, you scroll down and click on the register button here. And that brings up the register form. Now for the registering, you have three options. One, you can autofill with Google. If you autofill, it will ask you to authenticate using your Google account. And once you're done, you can log into the portal. Optionally, you can create an account using your email. So you can put in your email and add a password and enter your location from where you are. Select the CAPTCHA and register. Once you register, you will be sent an one-time password, which you will then be asked to enter, and that will create your account. All of you who have not yet created an account, please do this right now, because we will be uploading an observation right now. So please register and sign up on the portal if you haven't already done so. For those of you who do not have email accounts or are not actively using an email account, you can use your mobile number instead of the email. In that case, your one-time password will be sent to your mobile number and you will be able to create an account. Now I will sign in here because I already have an account. So to create an observation, so once you have created your account, you can click, once you are logged in, you can click my profile here, and that will take you to your user profile page. What you can do on your user profile page is that by default there is no image uploaded. You can click this and you can click your edit profile and upload an image for yourself, and you can change any of the details that are present here. You can add a section about you, and you can define your interests by species group and habitat. After creating an account, please go to the home page and then click this groups button here. It shows you all the different groups that are available on the portal. So your groups are essentially like Facebook groups. People are able to start groups of their theme and interest on the portal. So things, for example, Trees India is a group that has a theme of trees of India, and this is a group that aggregates information on trees of India. And Indian Moths is a group which aggregates moth-based information for India, and they run the National Moth Week every year. And essentially, a group is like a microsite within a portal which lists out only content that is relevant to that group of interest. For example, only on moths in this case. So if you click this groups and click on the see all, it will show you all the groups that are available, and you can click the leave or join button. If you are doing it this for the first time, you can click the join button. This should be a join button. You can click it and join the group. Only if you join the group will you be able to post your observation into the group. So for those of you who are from Aluva, if you go here and select latest, you will see that the first group that shows up is the Biodiversity of Aluva group. So you can click join us to join the group. It will show you join once you click on it, and then you will be a member of the group, so you can join the group. So those of you who have recently registered, please do this and join the groups. So once you have joined the groups, you can contribute an observation by clicking the contribute button and then add an observation. So what this does is bring up the observation upload form. So there are two ways you can upload an observation here. One, you can directly upload an image, video, or audio. Just click browse and select the image or multiple images which you want. Here, the important thing to understand is one single observation is one single sighting of one species. So while you can upload multiple observation or multiple images, all the images should belong to one species or one sighting at a time. So I've selected four images. It is the picture of a tree with its flowers, with its leaves, and a picture of its tree trunk. And when you select it, it uploads those pictures into the observation upload form. And then you can proceed further. You can put in a caption if you want. You can change the licenses if you want. If you do not know the species, you can just tick help identify. And if you do help identify, please also select what category it belongs to. So this is a tree. I've selected the plants group. In case you know what the species are, you can search for it. I know this is the Indian laburnum, also called Konna in Malayalam. So I can search either Indian laburnum, and there is an autocomplete which will give you a list of matches. If you click, it shows you the common name because I'm typing in the common name box. You can also directly search in the scientific name box and avoid the common name if you wish. But if you select an entry, it will auto-populate both the common name and the scientific name. And it will also auto-populate the species group if it is a known species. If it is a species name that we don't know, you will have to manually add it So if it is a random name and it is not present in a system, you will have to click the add button to add that species name. Once you added the scientific name, I hope all of you are also able to do this as I am uploading this observation, so that you can go along with me and upload observations along with me. Use the images that you already have and upload an observation. So once you've entered the species name, you have to enter the location. So this particular observation of this tree I have observed around my home in Karimanur. So I can search for Karimanur, and again there's a autocomplete. Click on that entry, it will add this place. But what's also adding is the coordinates, the latitude and the longitude, which you can see by clicking the show map. You can also move this to a more precise location on the map and say this is exactly where my home is, and use those precise coordinates. Now, for certain species, you can hide the precise location. So, if it is an endangered species and you don't want to reveal the actual coordinates, you can put in the actual coordinates but say hide the precise location. And this will automatically hide, or it will automatically scramble the location for endangered species. Also, if you're selecting a species name here which falls into the endangered category on IUCN or on the highly traded species list on CITES, it will automatically scramble the location and mark this as geo-private, so that the actual location of the species is not given out. Once you've added the location, you can hide the map if you want, and you can mark whether this is an accurate or an approximate location. We encourage you to add a few notes on this, like say this particular tree is flowering during the Vishu season in Kerala. You can also add tags if you want, and the date and the location. If the image already has a date and the location, it will automatically be picked up. So you can see in this case, it had a date, so it automatically picked up. This I took way back in 2014, so it was picked up automatically. Now, that is essentially what you need to upload an observation, but there is another section called traits. What this is asking you is, can you add more information on this observation? So, for example, this observation shows you that it is flowering right now. So, and also it's got some new leaves. So I can mark that this particular observation has flowers and fresh leaves. I can also mark what habitat type it was found in. So this was a rural agricultural setting. So I can mark that. And it's also a fairly common species. So I can mark the abundance as common. And finally, if you have joined the group, all the groups that you have joined will show up here. You can select the appropriate group to post to. Since this is a tree, I'm posting it to Trees India. Also, it's a part of home biodiversity because this tree is growing around my home. I'd like to add it to home biodiversity group. If your observation is from Aluva, you can add it to the biodiversity of Aluva group, and so on. And then once you are done, you can click add observation. It will take a minute while it submits it, and once it's submitted, it will show you the show page of the newly created observation. Now, people can participate on this observation by either suggesting a scientific name or common name. They can fill in information such as custom fields. So in this particular case, the custom field is being asked by the Trees India groups into which I posted, and it is asking me, do you know any folklore about this tree, or do you know uses about this tree? So that you can fill it in. If anyone can fill it in as long as he is logged in. People can also edit the traits. Now, traits are of two types: one which the public can edit, and one only which the observer can edit. So things like how abundant was it in that particular locality, only the observer can edit. Whereas things like phenology state can be edited by anyone, because looking at this picture that I have submitted, you can say whether it has flowers and leaves. So this is essentially crowdsourcing and structuring of information on the observation. You can, of course, add it to further groups from here, or you can unpost it from from the groups that it has already been posted. Finally, we also aggregate all activity that has happened on this observation. So you can see all the activity that has been performed on this is recorded. So essentially, all your activity is being recorded and it is being logged on the system. So one more thing that I wanted to show was how this activity is contributing to your leaderboard. So if you go down here and click your profile page, or if you go to the more section, you will see a link to the leaderboard. And when you go to the leaderboard, it will show you what your rank is through participation on the portal. Now, this is updated not instantly, it's updated at frequent intervals. So if you're not already seeing it, please wait a few minutes, it will be updated. But it essentially shows you what your participation on the portal is and what your rank is in terms of activity on the portal. It is not just uploads. We are calculating all activity, including identifications, post to groups, annotation of traits, comments that you've added. All these are being counted and logged on the system. And based on this, you have been allotted a rank and an ordering on the leaderboard. You can also filter this by the specific module. So within observations, what is your rank? Within species, what is your rank? Or you can say, today, what is your rank? In the past week, what is your rank? And so on for all time. So this essentially lets you compare your activity in citizen science on the portal with other participants on the portal, and it instills a sense of competition and feeling good about what you've done. I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted. I just want to quickly also show you for people who are on their mobile phones and people who are requesting, is there an app for this? We have recently shifted from a dedicated mobile app to what is called a progressive web app. So the same India Biodiversity Portal infrastructure on the web browser serves as a mobile app on the portal. So I will quickly just shift to that and show you how to install a progressive web app. So this is my mobile device, which I'm broadcasting on the screen right now. If you open your browser and type in indiabiodiversity.org, you can see when the page loads by default, at the bottom of the screen here, I don't know if you're able to see, but at the bottom of the screen, it says a message pops up saying add IBP to home screen. If you click that, it will ask you, do you want to add IBP to your home screen? And you need to click add. And it says adding IBP. It takes a few seconds. And once it installs the basic functionality required for the app, if you click the icon that is now present on your home screen, it loads the India Biodiversity Portal as an app. Now, for some reason, I mean, all the functionality is available through this app, just like the browser. But for some reason, if this does not show up, first uninstall it. It is uninstalled. Okay, now refresh. If for any reason, so this works best if you're using Chrome or Brave browsers. If for some reason that pop-up does not show up, what you need to do is click on the three dots here, and then down here, there is just above desktop site, there is an add to home screen. If you click that, it will ask the same thing, and you can add it to your home screen. and it will install IVP as an app on your mobile device. So that's how you add the app. I think from my end, that is pretty much all. I briefly wanted to say that it is possible to download the observations uh, from the India Biodiversity Portal, but at this moment we are going through a revamp phase. So it is temporarily disabled, but in a couple of weeks it should be back on. So you will be able to filter the observation page and download all the observations as a CSV file, an Excel spreadsheet, and then which you can use that information for whatever you wish. So that is temporarily down, but it will be brought back shortly. That's it from my end. I'll hand it back to Divya or Anu, and then we'll take some questions. So Divya is not online. Okay. Yeah. Hi, Anu.
Hi. So thank you, Dr. Thomas, and all the participants for joining us. My name is Dr. Anu, faculty in the Department of Zoology at St.Xavier's College. Hi.
Hi.
So we'll go ahead and take some questions for the now. Just a reminder, please be sure to type your questions in the chat box. I can see a lot of positive feedbacks from the participants. Some questions too. First question, that is, can we use this portal for species identification?
Yeah. So there's a couple of ways in which you can use the portal for species identification. One is using the descriptive information. So within each species, you are able to go to that species and look up the descriptive and the nomenclatural information or the morphological description of that species within the species page. And if you're able to process that, then you can use that for identifying the species from that. That is one way. Another way is that if for some of the species we have documented these species traits. So, for example, this is again in transition, so it may not work properly. For example, we have documented the color of dragonflies, the face color of dragonflies. So if you see a red dragonfly which has a face color of red, you can click on this and it will show you the matching 76 species found with has a male face color of around red region. So you can use this infrastructure which captures the morphological information as traits to identify species. But this is still work in progress. There's a lot more work that needs to go into it. Yeah. The other way of identifying species is to upload observations to the observation module. And once you upload the observation, you can mark it as help identify because you don't know what it is. But there are a lot of experts and enthusiasts who visit. For example, this is identified as unknown. And when somebody looks at it and says, I know the species, I can help identify it, you can go to the identification tab and help identify this. Help identify the species. I hope that's answered your question. Somebody else. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Next question, that is there any limit for the pictures that can be uploaded by a person?
There is no
Uh,
limit. Yeah, good. I know if you want to go ahead, or shall I answer that? Okay, is there any limit to the number of images? No, there is no limit to the number of images that can be uploaded. What we ask is that you upload several images if possible for a single observation, preferably from different angles, so that, especially if it's unidentified, others can look at it and use some taxonomic character that will be valid. For example, some dragonflies need the last anal appendages to be clearly visible to differentiate between at the species or genus level. So it's always useful if you take images from multiple angles and upload this. You can upload how many images you want. There is a restriction on the file size, but that's really not applicable because it's a huge restriction. And also, if you upload images over a certain size, the portal will automatically try and resize the images to a manageable size so that uploads happen faster and quicker.
Hope that answers. Next question, what about the copyright issues? Any
Yeah.
copyright issues associated with the pics and all?
Yeah. So, as I said earlier, all content on the India Biodiversity Portal is under Creative Commons licenses. So, we do not take images that you want to keep as hidden or you do not want to share. The whole intent of the portal is to share information on biodiversity. So, everything that we allow to be uploaded on the portal is shared under Creative Commons license, which means that people are free to reuse the content in a way that is appropriate. Now, within this Creative Commons license, so Creative Commons license, as I said, facilitates sharing as long as the original contributor is given credit for his contribution. And there are different types of Creative Commons licenses. Some which do not permit you to use an image, for example, in the commercial aspect, or some which do not allow you to reuse it with modification and so on. So if you go to the Creative Commons website, you should be able to get more details on the Creative Commons licenses. But all content on India Biodiversity Portal is under Creative Commons, and therefore there are no copyright restrictions as such.
So next one that is posted, that is it possible to calculate biodiversity indices using this portal?
I'm sure. I mean, so what we do is we aggregate information on species. So as I showed you, we have primary biodiversity records, we have descriptive information on species, we have documents of species. We then break it down into manageable bits and present it back to you in ways that you can consume. So the end use and application of this data that we present is up to you. You can download the data and use it in whatever application that is appropriate for you. So if your intent is to use it in a particular way, there's nothing stopping you from using it. If it's suitable, there's nothing stopping you from using it. Our purpose is to present you with that data in manageable proportion, manageable sizes and formats. And that is what we are offering. So yeah, sure, you can use it however you wish.
So the next one, that is how can we collaborate and work with the IBP?
So there are multiple ways you can collaborate. It depends on who you are, what is your expertise, and what is your objective. So on the basic front, as a normal citizen, you can collaborate essentially by uploading observations and helping identify observations. So through citizen science, it's already a great collaboration. On the next level, if you are a species expert, you can request to be a species contributor. If you are, we will give you the permission to edit and add content to species pages. And once that is done, you will be able to contribute on species pages. On a third level, if you are an organization that is documenting biodiversity in some way, we can help you have a group on the portal into which you can have all your members, upload observations, collect species relevant to your area, and so on. So we can help you set up groups, and also, if possible, set up live demonstration sessions or practical hands-on training for people to document biodiversity on the portal. If you are larger than that, if you're working in this space, you want to build biodiversity information, we can write up joint proposals and so on to get more funding to do what you want to do, and also build a particular feature on the India Biodiversity Portal that you want for your purpose. And finally, if you are an organization which is interested in partnering with India Biodiversity Portal in supporting it financially and in data, as an organization, you can become a partner on the India Biodiversity Portal for these purposes.
So hope that answers the question. Next one, that is, how do we go about crediting the person who helps us in identifying the species for publication purpose?
So when you upload the picture, you can upload it either having identified it or unidentified. So suppose this is a picture you uploaded and you have got the help of somebody else from identifying it. What essentially you can do is you can add a section in. So as admin, I can edit this observation. I can just show you. So in this case, I just want to point out this particular observation has 2 species in it. That is wrong. You should only upload 1 species in 1 observation. So essentially, it should not have this second one. But continuing, you can either put it in notes that this particular person helped me in identification. You can even put it in caption saying this was identified by this particular person. So that when other people visit the observation, they will get a better idea about that observation, about who helped identify that observation. I think there are a lot of people asking, can we send you images for identification? I think the thing is that you don't need to send it to me. What you need to do is log on to the portal, create an account, and upload it as an observation on the portal. Once you submit your unidentified observation in the portal, somebody will be able to identify it and upload it and identify it for you. There's no need to directly send it via email. You can upload it as an observation on the portal.
So we shall take the last question. That is, what are the challenges in zoological taxonomy?
So, interesting question. I mean, I won't directly get into what are the challenges in taxonomy per se, but what I can tell you is the challenges that we face as an information aggregation system for biodiversity, because the taxonomy system is at the core of what we do. Essentially, we're talking about a species, and the taxonomy of the species is very dynamic. It changes frequently, and once the taxonomy changes, there are modifications to the taxonomy. We need to ensure that those taxonomy changes are updated on the portal, and that's not a simple thing when you may have hundreds to thousands of observations pointing to a particular name, and suddenly that name has moved from an accepted name to a synonym, and so on. And so for us, the challenge is making sure that 1, the taxonomy is up to date, and 2, when it is updated, how does the information change accordingly? So these are 2 greatest challenges we face. there are also challenges with taxonomy per se, because not all taxonomists believe in the same classification system. And that again becomes a challenge for us, because one taxonomist says that this is the taxonomy I am following, and according to this taxonomy, it is a species, and a different taxonomy says that it should be a subspecies. So the challenge for us is, how do we take everybody on board and incorporate a system that is acceptable to all? So we have a taxonomy system, and we have a compromised taxonomy system that we follow. And so far it's been serving us well, but we need to keep it updated, and going forward, there will be a lot of changes. And this has always been a challenge, and it will continue to be a challenge, in my opinion.
So thank you, Dr. Thomas. It looks like we have covered most of our questions. Dr. Thomas, is there anything else you wanted to cover before I wrap up?
Basically, I just want to say the portal is out there. It is open, accessible to all. Please don't restrict yourself to this session. What we essentially need from you is participation. When you are going out there, install the app. When you're walking along the road, you see an interesting species or you see an invasive species, please take a picture and upload it on the portal. Time to time, when you have the time, maybe once a day, you can log into the portal. You can look at what submissions have been going on. You can help identify the organisms, or maybe post it to a group, and so on. And do not hesitate to contact us. You can reach out to us by mailing us at support.indiabiodiversity.org, and we will try and help you with whatever your needs are. If you need some collaboration, we are always open to it. So please reach out to us by emailing us at support@indiabiodiversity.org. We are always there, and we will always respond to you. So that's it from my end. I'd like to thank St. Xavier's College for Women, Aluva, and specifically Anu and Divya for having set this up and invited me to make this presentation. That's it from my end. Thank you so much, all the participants, for having participated, and do remain on the portal and participate and be active contributors on the portal. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. We, the team Zoology at St. Xavier's College for Women, Aluva, appreciate you being here. And at this outset, we would like to thank our resource person, Dr. Thomas Vattakaven, for his valuable thoughts on overview of biodiversity informatics and citizen science on India Biodiversity Portal on this International Biodiversity Day. So we are happy to associate with IBP for this webinar, and appreciate the efforts made by IBP in organizing the biodiversity data generated across the nation. So big thanks to Dr. Baby Divya for coordinating this webinar. And dear participants, we'll be sending you a feedback link for the registered participants through your mail by today evening. So please complete it to receive the e-certificate of the webinar. Thank you again for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Happy learning. Bye. So that's all.
Thank you.
You may leave the webinar room now. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.